Back to Masters Muscle episode 7. Again, another exciting guest. So much to learn, so much wisdom. Vinny, please be the guest of honor.
Thank you, Sean. Yeah, so now it's our 7th episode, and I wanted to go in a little different direction. Since this is Masters Muscle, I found Rudy on Instagram. I reached out to him. I thought his story was pretty cool. Rudy, at 55, you had a little skiing accident. It was you stumbled into weightlifting, and you kind of thought, hey, I wonder what the bench press record is for my age group. And now it escalated into you being the CEO of Kabuki Strength. And there's a lot of people out there who want to hear your story. So what's going on? How did you go from you were 54 years old, not working out, to training?
Yeah, I don't think it's unlike a lot of other people's stories in as much as when you're young and you're looking for a permanent life mate, your body's in good shape. You want to look good when you walk into a singles bar, right? So you do participate. I actually was participated in sports, and I was a college. I played football in college, and then I was a college football coach for my first career for 8 years or so. But then when I changed, got out of coaching and got into the business world, your mid-20s, late 20s, in my case, and you start raising a family, you have children, you have a career, you get really, really busy. And, me is somewhere down the list of priorities. You've already hooked the love of your life for the years, for the rest of your life. So you're not worried too much about, keeping the belly fat off, and you've got that kind of squared away. And, you're going to cocktail parties, and back then it was a two martini lunch, and trying to put deals together. You kind of get away from the training thing. You just don't have the time for yourself, running around picking up kids and taking them to Little League and softball and swimming and up the hill to go skiing and such. And it's not that I was totally away from training during those 25 or 30 years, but nothing serious, right? And it's one of those deals where every January 1st, you make the New Year's resolution. This is going to be the year I'm going to start training. You sign up for a new membership, or you just roll the old membership over at the local gym. You show up for, 3 or 4 weeks, and then someone says, hey, can you meet me after work for a drink, a deal to talk to you about? And all of a sudden you get out of it. And by February or March, you're back, not training again. And I was in that kind of loop for 25, 30 years.
Okay.
And did other things. I mean, it wasn't a total couch potato. We had sports. We liked to water ski, and we snow skied, and we were up in Central Oregon. We live in Oregon. We have a place over in Central Oregon. We were up skiing, and I caught an edge, did whatever it did, went down, fell on my shoulder, and I thought, well, it's just bruised, whatever. But after a month or so, the pain was still there. I went in to see my doc. He takes an X-ray. He was a funny guy, really funny guy. But he said, Hal, there's nothing wrong. You just got a little bursitis, is what he called it. So you're just getting old.
Oh.
I go, what?
And that pissed you off.
Oh, that really pissed me off. I go, I'm not old. You're old, you asshole. You're like,
love it.
So anyway, he goes, he sends me over to see a physical therapist that was close by. He was housed in a small personal training gym. And so I started going to see the PT for, a couple of days a week. And then afterwards I go downstairs and start training. Like I said, I wasn't unfamiliar with the weight rooms, having played football and coached football. So I started training and kind of got in the habit. By then, I'm 55 or 54, as you say, Vinny. I have 5 kids. That all the kids were at that point had left the nest, right? So there's a little bit more time for me, and I'm working on rehabbing the shoulder and training. And this was, it was a spring skiing accident. So it's into May or June. I'm going to physical therapy 2-3 days a week. I'm into July or August, and the shoulder's feeling better. I'm getting stronger again, and I keep it up and get all the way to the end of the year. I'm sitting at home watching the New Year's Day football games, and just kind of wondering, like you said, Vinny, I was wondering, I wonder what the bench press record is for Oregon. And I assume there might be something like for age and weight or whatever. So I went, I didn't Google it. We didn't have Google then. I think I binged it, right? and I sure enough, I found a site, and it showed, I don't know which federation it was, but I think it was the APA or something back then. But I looked up my age and weight and saw what the number was. And unbeknownst to me, I mean, it was, I don't know, it was in the 300 range or something. I thought, yeah, if I work a little harder, I can do that. So I announced to the trainer that next day. I went into that little gym that I'd been working out at. I said, my goal for this year is I want to set the Oregon bench press record. He said, well, if you want to do that, you got to squat and deadlift. I go, really? He goes, yeah, it's powerlifting. You got to do all 3. I said, okay, let's get busy. Nice. And that's how it started. I mean, the first time he put me under a squat bar, I mean, I didn't have the flexibility really even to get down without my heels coming off the ground, and they had to work on it. But 11 months later, so now it's November of that year, I had a business dealings in California and was traveling down there regularly. And I signed up for a powerlifting meet, and at a little gym down there. And I'd never even been to a powerlifting meet, let alone competed. But I signed up, showed up Saturday. Funny story. I mean, guy calls my name and said, Rudy Kadlub, the bar's loaded. And I start walking up, and another competitor pulls my shirt back and pulls it back and says, what are you doing? I go, well, they just call my name. I got to go up there. He goes, well, you can't wear what you're wearing. I had, like a pair of gym shorts that went down to my knees and a t-shirt. You can't wear that. You got to have a singlet. I go, what? Really? He goes, yeah. So he turns around and digs into his gym bag, and out of the bottom, he pulls up this crusty green thing that could stand up on its own. He goes, here, throw this on.
That's a powerlifting mentality. Those guys are nobody just helping you out. A bodybuilder would never do that.
Oh yeah, no, God, it's just, it's kind of creeps me out even thinking about it at this point. But at any rate, I go up and I competed, and I guess I set all 3 California state records at that point, and
that's great.
That kind of got me excited. And then 4 months later, I was back in Sacramento and competed again and broke those records, and then came back to Oregon. And there weren't very many competitions going on back then. And so I naively thought, well, I went and talked to the gym owner. I said, could I host a powerlifting meet here? And he goes, yeah, what's it entail? And we talked about it. He says, sure, let's do it. So I contacted the APA and Scott over there, and he said, yeah, I'll come out for it. And so it was pretty amazing. We ended up with people from California, Oregon, Washington, British Columbia. They came to that meet at this little gym, and then I met some of the local guys here that were in the powerlifting scene, and that's how it got started. And ultimately, one of those guys ended up inviting me to train with him. He has been my training partner, and now is my business partner. Guy by the name of Chris Duffin, that people in the muscle business know that name a little bit. So yeah, that's how we started. And he was just kind of a lark, and got going, and I had that success, and that reinforced it, and just kept going the last 18 years now. And I think I've set just about every record there is for my age group and
Very cool.
class. In fact, I think I have all the records on from 90, 100, and 110 kilos in powerlifting now.
Rudy, when you first told your family, your wife and your kids, were they initially behind you, or they think, Dad, honey, you're out of your freaking mind?
Well, it was interesting. That's an interesting question. And my wife never really has been thrilled when she talks to me about it, but she always tells her friends. And my husband's the strongest 70-plus-year-old powerlifter in the world. She brags about me behind my back. But I remember at that first competition that we had in the hometown, that little gym, a couple of my daughters came, and my wife and some friends, and they really got behind it. All three of my daughters were cheerleaders, but one of them, I go up to lift that first lift, and she starts this cheer, in the background. Are you DUI? You ain't got no alibi. Go, Rudy.
Oh,
Rudy. I turn over and look, and I go, what are you doing? You're making me laugh, and I'm trying to be serious here.
That's great. And Rudy,
they've been supportive all these years. Yeah, they're really
that's awesome. And so how did Kabuki Strength start? How did that come into fruition?
They came quite a bit later. I guess this was 06 or 07 when I first got started with powerlifting. But as I mentioned, there was a guy that came to that first meet that I hosted, and a fellow by the name of Chris Duffin. And I saw him about 3 or 4 months later at another competition in Washington. And we got to talking, and he actually dropped 650-pound bench press on his face in that meet. And then went on, took his third attempt anyway. And then he ripped his hand open on a deadlift attempt. And I happened to have athletic tape in my bag, like all good coaches would have. And I patched him up, and we got to talking. He said, "Hey, you should come train with me in Portland sometime." And that's another kind of funny story. But so I said, "Yeah, okay." But he at the time was probably 29 or so, and I'm 55. And I show up at his house for the first time, and I go around the back and down through the back door and down these stairs into a basement that's only about 7 foot tall. And he's got a rack in there that's touching the ceiling. And there's another guy in there, is about a 310-pound dude. And I'm thinking to myself, what am I doing? I'm with these two guys. I mean, I'm kind of in a sketch part of town. And here's these two monsters, and they invited me, and I just willingly said, okay. I go, this is nuts. My wife doesn't know where I am. I could get raped here. This it's going to end up bad for me.
This is great.
Just keep your GPS on the phone so they can track you.
I don't think we had GPS back then, but it all worked out fine. They were great guys, and helped me with technique, which was still working on. Then I still work on my technique. I mean, to this day, we keep working on it. So that was back in like 2008 or so, and we trained at Chris's house. We've got a few more people started training with us. Then we had 6 or 7 people in the basement, and it got too crowded. We moved what equipment we had up into his driveway, which was fine during the summertime. And then as winter came along, moved it into his garage. And then we had 15, 16 people coming regularly to train with us. And we're sitting around one summer afternoon and got to thinking, if all these people would pay something, we could find a little inexpensive retail spot or something and open up a hobby gym, which is what we did. And pretty soon we had 100 or so people training with us.
Wow.
We called it a elite performance center, which sounds quite unique, right? And we were too cheap to buy equipment, so we made some of the equipment. In fact, Chris was an engineer by education, and he kind of designed a couple of things, and I put up some money for us to build a couple of actually 4 monoliths, and which we sold 2 of them, and then actually bought one back. But another story. But at any rate, we made stuff to use, because we would find gyms that were closing and buy them for pennies on the dollar, and kind of built up a little bit that way. And pretty soon, after 3.5 years, we had outgrown that little hole in the wall, and we rented space in a commercial facility, an industrial park, and like 8,800 square feet, and put our stuff in there, and we kept growing the facility. But again, it was a hobby gym. We didn't make any money. We weren't trying to make any money. It was just a place for us to go and to build a culture of lifting with like-minded people, and we helped each other out, and we trained hard and competed, and we'd go home and to our regular jobs. And I was a real estate developer at the time. I was developing the largest mixed-use residential community in the state at the time, and he was managing a plant for that manufactured parts for Boeing and other things like that. So we're totally engaged in our other career. And then that was January of 2014 when we moved into this new place. And in the spring of 2015, Chris had been working on a loadable, adjustable mace. All power lifters at one point or another end up with shoulder issues, and I'm one of those. But he was designing the same with something we were playing with, but we actually found a way to develop an industrial nut and weld it to a 4-foot long pipe and flare it out. And it was a great way to warm up before training. It was also a great way to build strength in the shoulders and help learn stability and rooting and other things. So we said, it's kind of interesting. Maybe people would buy this if we put it on the market. So we created on the fly a web page, and we called this thing the Shoulder Rock, and introduced it. And within a few weeks, it was just blowing up, and we were selling shoulder rocks like crazy. And then we came up with a design for a T-shirt, a whiskey that was called Whiskey and Deadlift, that's similar to a Jack Daniel's sort of logo. And the Whiskey and Deadlift shirt, we couldn't make those fast enough. So all of a sudden we're coming in to train, and before we train, we spend 45 minutes stuffing envelopes to send out the Whiskey and Deadlift T-shirts. Nice. And boxing up shoulder rocks to mail out. And within 4 months, we had enough revenue going there that we could afford to have Chris quit his day job. I said, I'll underwrite it. He became our first employee in April of that year. And then in August, we came out with our first specialty barbell, which is called the Duffalo Bar. And that took off so well that I ended up having to spend maybe 40% of my time with Kabuki. And then within a year, we had other specialty products. And then, all of a sudden it's a real company, and we're making money and hiring people. And it goes from a hobby to and it was called Elite Strength Equipment. As you recall, the gym was called Elite Performance Center. And then we had Elite Strength Equipment. And then we were actually had Elite FTS was selling some of our products. And that got a little bit confusing. And then when we had a pizza delivered to us that was intended for the elite cheerleading squad of Clackamas County, we thought, calling ourselves elite doesn't make us elite, and it certainly isn't a unique name. And so we right then and there we decided we got to come up with a new name, and the website. I mean, the podcast isn't long enough to go off on tangents and all these other little things, but suffice it to say, we came up with the name Kabuki Strength at that time, and that's what we've been doing ever since.
How did you come up with Kabuki?
You're going to ask me anyway.
Of course.
Well, a lot of it is if you're familiar with the Japanese culture and Japanese drama, it's a mask. In Japanese drama, they wear masks to portray who the character is.
Mm-hmm.
So we came up. You can see in the background there the squat face. It's anybody's squat face, but everyone, when they squat heavy weight, they come up with a different face that they might make. And so that was our Kabuki mask. And in college, Chris's nickname was Kabuk or Kabuki. And so we, and my last name starts with K-A. So I said, that works for me. Let's just call it Kabuki Strength. And it was unique enough that we weren't going to confuse it with, with some other strength company or someone else. So yeah, that's kind of how it went up. And we quickly developed the logos and the squat face, and we've been going at it ever since.
Awesome.
So, Rudy, I want to bring up just quickly here the Duffalo Bar that you mentioned. Hopefully, you folks can see that. Obviously, it's got an arch to it. Is that to ease tension, or like what's the reasoning for maybe the common folk? What's the reasoning of the bend in the bar?
It was originally designed as a squat bar, and I mentioned earlier that if you're going to be in powerlifting, you're going to put your shoulders in an uncompromising situation. Putting a squat bar or a power bar on your back under load and getting your hands in that extreme external rotation under load eventually will wear that GH joint out.
Yep. And
it's certainly what happens to me, and we'll talk more about my shoulder story later in the podcast. But by having that bend in the bar, instead of being here, if you can see on I don't know if I can capture it all on the picture here, but it drops your hands down lower, takes the pressure off of that position. So you just feel it yourself. So either here versus here, your shoulders are in a much more centrated position. And so it's much more comfortable on the back. It's much more comfortable to squat. And, I was having shoulder issues back then. I was under pain, and just getting underneath a squat bar, my training partners would have to shove me under the bar, and I would be under such pain and tension under that bar that all I could do is want to get the squat over with, because it just hurt so much.
Yeah.
When I relieve the bar, set it back in the rack, literally have to peel myself out from underneath the bar.
I understand.
You know that feeling, right?
Well, I have 14 anchors throughout my shoulders.
Yeah, what?
I have 14 anchors throughout both my shoulders.
Yeah. And I had shoulder replacement surgery on both shoulders in 2016, hemicap surgery.
Wow.
So
wow.
The result, but so that was the notion. And then we started pressing with it. It was designed for squatting, and we had it 2 or 3 months. And I came out in the gym one afternoon, and I saw Chris benching with it, and I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "This is amazing." And so I go, let me try it. But the curve in the bar for benching, so instead of, being in this position with the straight bar, just the reach of reaching out on that bend drops the shoulders down into a more centrated position. So if you've
Interesting.
ever done that, it's almost like if you've used a football bar or a neutral grip bar to bench with, you can see it forces external rotation. So that's kind of what's happening with the Duffalo bar. So the Duffalo bar is if you only had one bar in your home gym, and if you like to press and you like to squat, that's a great bar to have because you can do both with it.
That's
And so
awesome.
that became our number one a piece of equipment until later on in the history of the company, we developed other specialty bars, the Transformer bar and the Cadillac bar and the HD Trap bar, and today we have a company that went from selling T-shirts to being a seven-figure a year companies in a pretty short period of time.
Nice. Now, since you've had shoulder replacement, have you still been into competing?
Oh yeah, no, I've broken my own world record a dozen times since 2016 for squat, bench, and deadlift.
That's awesome.
The surgery that I had, Vinny, was it's called handicap surgery. So in a full shoulder replacement, what happens is they'll cut the head of the humerus off, and they'll drive a titanium rod down into the bone with a titanium ball, kind of like a giant golf tee.
Yep.
That's what that full shoulder replacement does. But if you have that surgery, it's ill-advised to be involved in active sports. Even riding a bicycle, if you fell off your bike and landed on your elbow, what's going to give first, the titanium rod or your bone, right?
Yep.
And so there's a doctor at the Cleveland Clinic, Anthony Miniacci, who's now on our advisory board, who had come up with an alternative and had been really successful with it. And it's quite different than a full shoulder replacement, in as much as what they do is they just cut off the head of the humerus. Well, they don't cut off the head of the humerus. They kind of just flatten the top of it off, sort of shave it off so it's flat, get rid of all that arthritis and calcium deposits. And then they literally glue and screw a half dome of titanium onto the top of the bone. So think of like a lacrosse ball cut in half, but made of titanium with a titanium wood screw on it.
Wow.
And then on the glenoid process of the scapula, they inlay Teflon. So I have a titanium and Teflon joint now in both shoulders. I had the right one done in like May of 16 and the left one done in October of 16. Then I was back on the platform in the spring of 17 and have been going to nationals and worlds and have broken the record every time I go out.
God bless you, man. That's awesome. You're an inspiration to anyone, any age. I mean, so many people I talk to, they'll say, they joke with me and go, wait till you're my age. And I go, how old are you? I'm like 45, 50. I'm like, well, I'm 10 years older than you. And people just think that the older you get, you can't do things. And you're a walking testament. It's awesome. So your story is inspiring.
Yeah, it is frustrating for me. I hear that all the time too, and it's the too old, too sore, to this or to that. But it's just an excuse, and it's hard. I get it. I mean, it's hard for someone who has been sedentary for 30 years or 35 years, going through the same thing. If they got a family, they've probably been sitting on the sidelines, and it's really tough to all of a sudden get out there, start lifting weights. And you don't have to lift heavy weights to get the benefit of it. I mean, just moving some under load would generate all kinds of benefits, including burning calories. And, you tend to, if you can get into it, if you can get through that first hump and you start thinking about it, it's like, okay, if I'm working so hard, why am I still smoking, or why am I still eating fatty foods? And you start watching your diet, and you start acting as if you're an athlete. and the way people should act. But it's hard to get over that hump. It's hard to make that happen. So there's a number of strategies. Having a training partner that is equally committed is helpful. But it is tough. I would love to see more people that are mature athletes, generate the courage to go out and pick up some weight and move it around, because they'll live a lot healthier, longer life. There's a Dr. Gabrielle Lyons. She was on a podcast that I listened to. It's a over 50 health and wellness podcast. And it's called Muscle is the Organ of Longevity. And it's really true. I mean, people that are stronger and train are frankly going to live longer. And if they don't live longer, they're at least going to live a healthier last 20 years of their life, instead of living the last 20 years of your life being fat and overweight and with diabetes and not being able to move, not being able to pick up your grandkids. It's pretty important. One other byproduct that people don't think about. I mean, I've seen some of your picks, Vinny, and as a bodybuilder, totally different sport than powerlifting for sure. But what is interesting, and people think, well, I don't want to get bulky. That's another excuse I hear. It's like, okay, I don't want to look like a muscle head. But one of the biggest benefits is the improvement to bone density.
Yes.
You see, as people age, I mean, there's the natural sarcopenia of muscle loss, but you can gain muscle at any age.
Absolutely.
But the osteoporosis that comes with a sedentary life, it can be reversed, and you can improve your bone density. I had a bone scan done a couple summers ago, not a bone scan, but a total DEXA scan, a body scan, where they measure lean body mass and, et cetera, but also bone density. And in that scan, based on their scale and averages for people 60 and over, and it was the highest they went, it was 60 and over. If a score of 2.5 is 2 standard deviations above the mean, so it's better than 95% of the population.
Yep.
But my bone density score was 5.2.
Wow.
They had never seen that in somebody that was my age. And I think I was 71 at the time, 73 now. So my bone density was such that there are probably not 4 people my age in the world that have that kind of bone density. And it's not because I drink a lot of milk or because I was born that way. It's just because we put stress on the skeletal system when you do resistance training.
Yeah.
And over 18 years of doing that, my bone density continued to grow. And what a great benefit for the older population. How often have you heard someone, your grandma or your friend's wife or whatever, fall, break their hip, and then they die?
Yes. One of the leading causes.
Yeah. And, you could drop me off the top of this building. I wouldn't break anything. Not that I want to try it, but, it's bone density is a big factor for the aging population.
Let me ask you this question. You seem like you're pretty systematic in your training, and you put thought and a lot of thought behind it. Because I find this now, I'm going to be 56 in April, that I have to respect days off and time off. Do you incorporate, say, okay, I'm going to do this training program, but I also need to follow it up with X amount of days away from the gym or at rest periods? Like, do you incorporate that to move forward?
Absolutely. I mean, the notion of you can always do too much of a good thing, and then it's not a good thing anymore.
Yep.
You can definitely overtrain. And as we age, it does take a little bit longer to recover. After a squat day, the next day I can feel it in my knees walking up the stairs. It takes a bit of time to recover. If there's no way I could squat 3 days a week or 4 days a week, or deadlift or any of that. In fact, I've had great training partners, a great friend, John Hare, who's also he's about 12 years my younger, but he's now in that class of being a mature athlete. So he's 61, and he's got multiple world records. But he was an engineer and very 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 detailed in his training schedule, and he was always helping me, and we kind of trained together. We didn't repeat things back to back, and we trained really 3 days a week together. And then sometimes a fourth day a week that you might do at home, maybe doing some accessories or so. But today, we have Kabuki Strength has a coaching and education department, and we have some of the best strength coaches in the country. And so I leave my training now to our head coach. He runs my program. He sets me up. I don't have to think about it, Vinny. I don't have to, sit down at the end of each week and think about what rep and set program I'm going to do or which muscle groups I'm going to hit. Right. I mean, it's just on my app. I go in the gym, I open it up, I go, okay, what are we doing today? But awesome. Typically I squat on Monday, I'll bench on Tuesday, and I deadlift Thursday. And I leave enough time earlier in the week. So if there's something happens on Tuesday and the wife says, hey, we got dinner with the neighbors Tuesday night, I can bench on Wednesday, and something happens, I can come back and deadlift on Saturday if I need to. But that's pretty much it. I just train 3 days a week.
Nice. Awesome.
Rudy, somebody had reached out to me to ask a question about, supplementation. Do you joint formulas, protein powders? Do you use any kind of additional supplements to keep you going strong?
Nothing. I try to take in a fair amount of protein, and as we age, we don't process protein as well as we did when we were younger. So you literally have to have more protein than a 27-year-old might have in order to get the same benefits. And according to Dr. Gabby, she's indicates that for a 60-plus year old athlete, you need like 50 grams of protein for the body to even recognize it. Mm-hmm. And 50 grams in a meal. So yep. When you think about having 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, which is generally the recommendation. So I'm weighing 218, 220 grams of protein. That's a lot of steak. Yeah. It's a lot of protein to take in. So, I drink a lot of high protein milk. Right. I don't really supplement it too much, but I do have protein shakes and eat a lot of meat, mostly red meat. Steak is my go-to, but I'll eat a lot of eggs and bacon and other things that people say, oh my God, that's horrible for you. But I don't seem to have any heart problems or cholesterol problems or anything like that.
Cool.
And Rudy, how many records do you have? I've seen some articles say 45. I've seen some articles say 50. How many records do you have?
I don't know, Sean. I lost count.
Lost track.
I'm not trying to be that way. It's like
it's not a bad thing to be in. If there's so many of them, you can't keep track.
Yeah, I don't know. So you can see some of the ones that are hanging in the background. I got that much at home. It's just for whatever reason, I continue to get stronger, and there's multiple reasons. One is just the consistency. It's the buildup of training over time, Vinny. I mean, yeah. you know that as a bodybuilder. I mean, the more muscle fiber you create, the more you do it, and you're building on what you did last year and the year before and the year before that.
Rudy, I entertained powerlifting once. I'm not a powerlifter, but I used to work for Universal Nutrition Animal, and over the years I met some of the top powerlifters, and one of my good friends was, I don't know if you know the name, Andre Skiba. And Andre always said to me, if you're ever gonna powerlift, please come see me. So one day I just said, that's it, man. Forget everything I've ever learned about lifting weights. You teach me powerlifting. And I did it. I enjoyed it. And the camaraderie part was amazing. But the interesting thing about what I learned in powerlifting was how I started to rehab myself after shoulder surgery was basically like a powerlifting routine with like a 5-3-1, and just improve on that with the weights. And I incorporate a 5-rep scheme into my training today. If it wasn't for what I learned in that year of powerlifting, I probably wouldn't have made the comeback that I've made, and having the success I'm having at a later age. So I have the utmost respect for powerlifters. And when I saw your story, I said to Sean, I got to get this guy on here.
Well, I know Henri, and he and I go back. We had a seminar. We conducted a seminar at his gym in New Jersey. Oh gosh, 7 or 8 years ago, and I met him then, and he's a big Kabuki fan now. He's trying to get as many of the bars, our bars, into his gym as possible. But he's also a collector of bars. First time I went to his gym, I go, oh my God, how in the hell do you even get around in this room here? There's so much stuff.
It's his toys. Yeah,
he has lots of toys. He loves the way. He just loves the gym. Yeah. Well, on the other hand, Vinny, I could not ever do what you do, the bodybuilding thing, just because I like food too much, and I could not do the strict diet that you guys do.
Well, I only do the strict diet for 16 weeks. I eat like a powerlifter the rest of the time.
Yeah, well, you're still not going to talk me into it. I'm sorry.
So, do you have any? What's your goal for 23? Do you have anything set in the horizons as far as you want to break any records, or?
Yeah,
are there any records to break? Are there any more to break?
Yeah, there's always more. There is always more, right? So this past year, the World Championships were in Costa Mesa in November of 21. So I was there and broke all 4 records there, including the total. And then at the Nationals, which were in Atlanta last year in May, I was training. My training was going really well. I was set to break all the records again, and end up right in that last 2 weeks. I got a pretty hefty strain in my vastus lateralis, and we threw everything at it. Chris helped. We did all sorts of peptides and that kind of thing, trying to get it to turn around, but there just wasn't enough time, and so wasn't able to really compete at a top level in that meet. I think it was on Memorial Day, and then I went from there to the Cleveland Clinic and had surgery on my AC joint, which had gotten arthritic. And so I spent most of summer rehabbing that, and then competed. I didn't go to the Worlds this year because they were in Australia, and I didn't feel I should travel that far if I wasn't really 100%. So I competed just at the Oregon State Championships this past December, and I was able to break my squat and deadlift record there. Bench is still lagging behind a bit still as I rehab that shoulder. So for this coming year, in fact, they just opened up the Nationals registration today. So I signed up. I'll be in my next meet will be in July and August at the Nationals. So the goal there would be to break all 3 records again.
Sweet. That's awesome.
Rudy, over the years that you've been doing this, have you seen the numbers for like increase? Like when you enter this I'll just say like a 60 division, are the numbers growing, or are they still kind of stagnant? Are you seeing more competitors at the higher ages?
We're seeing more people staying with powerlifting, or even getting into powerlifting at a later date, which encourages me. I mean, I'm excited. I'm hoping that the efforts that I'm making can set an example to people that, it's never too late and you can accomplish things. I mean, I didn't set off to become a world record holder. I mean, I set off to to heal my shoulder from a skiing injury, right? And it just kind of happened. But if I'm encouraging anyone out there, if I'm inspiring anyone to get off the couch and do it, then to me that's better than setting a record. If someone says I started training because you inspired me to do it, man, that makes my day. I love hearing people say that they're getting going because maybe I showed them that there's a possibility, there's a way to be healthy and continue to improve.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I think sometimes people use the age to dictate what they can and cannot do where they shouldn't. I mean, that's the way I look at it.
100% they do. Absolutely.
Yeah. I get it all the time. I find guys in the gym, like saying, wow, you look great for your age. I'm like, don't say that. I don't look great for my age. I look better than you do.
Exactly.
I try to joke, but yeah, it's interesting. The older you get, the more of a novelty you are to certain people who are a lot younger, or even people our own age. How do you do that? Oh my God, I could never live that lifestyle. And it's not it's a lifestyle, but it's also, and correct me if I'm wrong on how you think, but you don't have to fight the thought of doing what you're doing. You just do it. It becomes natural and you enjoy the process.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing is the process.
Yeah. I mean, you compare what we do and the hours in the gym. I mean, okay, so I train normally from 4:30 to 6:30 or so in the evenings. So that's a couple hours, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, but 3 times a week, that's 6 hours a week.
Right.
That's less than a lot of my friends who play golf. And the amount of time they spend golf, they play golf one time on Saturday. It's 6 hours right there. But many of them are out on the driving range for an hour, 2 or 3 times a week, and they play twice on the weekends. And you hear about golf widows, because they never see their husbands. That takes up a whole lot more time than being a world record powerlifter would take. So, I don't want people to use the excuse it takes too much time, because they spend more time doing things that aren't really improving their health. I mean, it's good to get out and walk as a golfer, but unless you're doing resistance training, you're not gaining any muscle, you're really not.
Yeah.
So where can people find you on social media and your websites? And
yeah, well, you to get great access to coaching and education, we have a lot of free stuff there at kabukistrength.com. It's KABUKI strength with a TH.com. Lots of great information there. Great products for people who are active adults. The specialty bars that we have allow you to train at optimum. In fact, interesting anecdote. I want to get this out before we wrap up here, but I train year round with our specialty bars with the Transformer bar, the Duffalo bar, and the Kadlub bar. I don't use a competition straight bar for squatting or benching until I'm 2 weeks out from a competition. And I literally only compete at the nationals in the world. So I only use a squat bar or a power bar 4 times a year, four training sessions a year, literally. So you don't have to put your shoulders and your hips and everything in that extreme uncompromised positions to be able to still gain strength. So anyway, kabukistrength.com, check out those specialty barbells that optimize your training and reduce the risk of injury. And then on Instagram, It's just Rudy Kadlub. There are no other Rudy Kadlubs in the world, so I don't have to do any fancy deal there. And same with Facebook. I'm not on Facebook as much, but Instagram is Rudy Kadlub. And if you want to email me, have a private question, you can DM me on Instagram. Again, it's Rudy Kadlub. Just one word on IG.
Rudy, as we quickly wind down here, I don't know if it was mentioned, what are your lifts?
Squat, bench, and deadlift.
No, I'm sorry, but what are your numbers? I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Your numbers.
Okay, so 457.5 was the new record I set on the squat in December.
Very nice.
314 is my bench record, and I get 518 or 523 is the deadlift.
Awesome.
Is there anything else that maybe we neglected to bring up, Rudy, as we wind down?
Well, why don't we pick all that up the next time you have me on?
Awesome. We'd love to have you back on. Thank you.
That's great. Hey, Vinny, keep up what you're doing. And Sean, thank you for including me. This is your 7th episode, so you guys are just getting started.
Yes.
So I've had a podcast for 10 years, but I do more of the supplement side and the health side of things.
Yeah.
And then I've known Vinny for a while now, and he said, Sean, look, I want to start a podcast for the over 40 athlete, to show people that life doesn't end at 40.
Yeah,
so we've
absolutely.
had bodybuilders, we've had contest promoters, obviously great people like yourself, and here we are 7 in, and we're going strong.
Yeah.
Well, good luck. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And as always, Vinny, it's Vinny Galante _ correct?
Yes.
And of course, it's Subtalk _ for me. And as always, folks, thank you so much. Next week, we have on Vin. I'm having a mental moment here.
Next week we have on my list. We got,
I should know this.
Craig Richardson and Robbie Lopez from Jersey.
Yes, IFBB pros as well.
Yes.
Yes. Rudy, thank you again, my friend, and good luck to you.
You bet, Sean.
Thank you, Rudy.
Yep. Thanks, Vinny.
Bye-bye.